So I want to bring this up because one of the engineering leaders we're working with, one of the questions that he brought up was, how do we improve process? So the sort of the simple summary is CEO says we're not shipping or as productive as we need to be. It's a smaller stage company. So engineering leaders like, okay, let's look at our process to figure out how we can better develop and be efficient. And in his mind, he's like, oh man, I know the goal is to be able to bring in any engineer who's new and so that they're autonomous right away. And how do I do that? So, but he's like, I don't know where to look or where to begin in looking at process. So when you think about process changes, so you mentioned some of the tech ops meetings, are there certain ones that you would prioritize or certain process elements that you would say you could probably look into this and find some inefficiencies or better ways to work, or an area in process where you could probably better empower somebody to make an autonomous team? Is there anything that kind of comes to mind for you there?
Yeah, there is a lot in your question, right? We could spend
Yeah.
hours talking about this. And the reason is, if you ask a higher level question on, is your team highly effective, right? That's a pretty complicated question. There's a lot of dimensions to make it right to become effective, right? And that there are some common things that happen in engineering that managers can actually look at. One of the things that we have done at Atlassian that probably is unique is to be able to measure KTLO, right? Keeping the lights on, the debt that you have, and how much time do you spend on working on things that don't move you forward versus the things that can move you forward, right? So we explicitly measure that for every team. And that's been huge in terms of, and this is not the direct answer to this. The reason I'm saying this is these kinds of measures and having measures for the team helps you to make those decisions, because first of all, as a manager, as a leader, you need to understand where the bottlenecks are, and for that you need visibility and you need the teams to tell you what's wrong. And that's where the open transparent culture helps. And for me, Atlassian has an amazing culture. And in fact, I talked about failures, and failures are okay. And that's not an easy thing for anybody, right? So, because many of us, definitely for me, was brought up in a school system where it's like, you can't fail. You need to get more marks, more grades to be able to get to a better school and better jobs. And so, in the work environment, to understand that actually I should be okay with the failure and let's figure out how to learn from it. And it's also okay to disclose it to other people, and having a culture where other people respect that, oh, wow, let's figure out how to get better as a team, as an organization. Like that closed loop is extremely important, right? So that's step number one. If you have that and you have the visibility of what you want to improve, then it helps you to make those things better. For example, one of the things that most people talk about is a postmortem, right? So you always talk about, oh, yeah, when an incident happens or when you finish a project, do a postmortem so you can learn from it. That's a great thing. You should do it. But the counterintuitive thing that uh, most people don't think about is when you start a project. When you start a project, most people are, let's say it's an awesome project, it's like exciting. People always jump into it and they're like, oh, wow, we absolutely have to, everybody's rallying, they're all running towards direction, but nobody stops to think, is that project really going to be successful? Will it be effective? So there is and Atlassian, again, to the open, transparent culture, we have published all our playbooks at the Atlassian playbook. One of the plays that we really like, and I personally like, is what is called the pre-mortem, which is before the project starts, you collect in a group and you figure out what might actually go wrong in the project. So that actually helps you to figure out, oh, wow, we can fail this way, we can fail that way, to add countermeasures and counterbalances to not fail the way that you want. So there are a number of places where, as a leader, as an organization, you can figure out how to change things or change processes. It's good to think about early in the process, not just later in the process, which is normally what happens. And that's why I like these pre-mortem and like the principles which are at the head, at the start of the cycle, so that helps you to steer in the right direction from day one, not panic towards the end.